Beneath the dry hills of southeastern Turkey lies a structure older than cities, older than farming, older than recorded history. Massive stone pillars, carved with animals and arranged in precise circles, were raised by people who had no metal, no wheels, and no written language. For thousands of years, this place remained buried, hidden beneath layers of earth, untouched and forgotten. When it was finally uncovered, it challenged everything historians believed about the beginnings of civilization. How could early humans organize such labor, shape such stone, and plan such complex designs? And why was this place carefully sealed away after it was built? Beneath the arid hills of southeastern Turkey, hidden for millennia under layers of soil and rock, lies a mystery that has defied conventional understanding. Göbekli Tepe, a site so ancient it challenges the very foundations of human history, has stirred both wonder and confusion among historians, archaeologists, and scholars alike. How is it possible that a society existing over 12,000 years ago could have constructed something so intricate, so grand, and so technologically advanced when the world was still in the throes of the Stone Age? Could such an early civilization have had access to knowledge and skills we only attribute to later, more advanced cultures? And perhaps more unsettling, what if everything we thought we knew about the origins of human civilization is wrong? The first moment you encounter Göbekli Tepe, it's like stepping into a forgotten world, a time so distant that it seems to hover on the edge of myth and reality. The site is a sprawling complex of massive stone pillars arranged in circles, some reaching heights of over 16 feet and weighing several tons each. These stones, far too heavy to have been easily transported with the primitive tools of the time, are carved with intricate, almost cryptic images of animals, creatures that seem to have leapt off the pages of an ancient bestiary. Lions, vultures, snakes, and scorpions, all meticulously etched into the surfaces of the pillars. At first glance, the site feels like a temple, an altar of some forgotten religion. But as researchers dig deeper, the questions only grow more perplexing. If this is indeed a religious site, why was it buried deliberately, hidden away from the world for thousands of years? And why was this complex constructed at a time when human societies were still largely hunter-gatherers, without the political or technological structures we associate with monumental architecture? For years, Göbekli Tepe was little more than a footnote in archaeological research. It was only in the 1990s that the site was rediscovered by Klaus Schmidt, a German archaeologist who recognized the significance of the mounds at Göbekli Tepe. When Schmidt first examined the site, he was staggered by what he found. Beneath the earth, in a region where only basic stone tools have been used, lay a sprawling, sophisticated site that seemed to predate everything previously known about human civilization. The initial excavations uncovered large, carved pillars, meticulously arranged in circular patterns. These patterns were not random. They appear to have been carefully designed, each stone placed with purpose and intent. The complexity of the site was unlike anything that had been found in the archaeological record before, and it raised more questions than it answered. How could this site exist in a time when people were still living in small, nomadic groups? What knowledge did these ancient builders possess, and why had they left no written records of their achievements? The more researchers studied the site, the more baffling it became. It was clear that Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a collection of random stones. It was a place of deep significance. The sheer scale of the undertaking suggested a highly organized society, capable of mobilizing large groups of people to work on the site, possibly over generations. But there were no signs of permanent settlements around the area. No evidence of the kind of agricultural infrastructure that would suggest a society based on farming. And yet, the intricacy of the carvings and the sophistication of the stonework seemed to demand a level of expertise and knowledge far beyond what we would expect from a society that had not yet even discovered the wheel. As the site began to reveal its secrets, scholars debated its purpose. Was it a temple, an observatory, a ritualistic center, or something far more complex? Some suggested that Göbekli Tepe was a place of worship, a gathering point for the people of the time, who may have used it to connect with the gods or to mark significant astronomical events. The arrangement of the pillars, some of which are aligned with the stars, pointed toward the possibility that the builders of Göbekli Tepe had a deep understanding of the cosmos, far beyond what was previously thought possible for a society that had not yet developed writing, metal tools, or advanced agricultural techniques. This led some to speculate that Göbekli Tepe might have served as an astronomical observatory, a place where ancient people could track the movements of the stars and the seasons, guiding their lives and rituals by the movements of the heavens. But the site also raised even more unsettling questions. Why was it buried? And who, or what, could have buried it? The intentional burial of Göbekli Tepe remains one of its greatest mysteries. The site was deliberately filled with soil, stones, and rubble, effectively sealing it off from the world for thousands of years. This burial could not have been accidental. It was a conscious decision, an act of preservation, or perhaps even concealment. But why? Was it a symbolic act, a way of protecting the site from some unknown threat? Or was it a way to preserve the knowledge contained within Göbekli Tepe for future generations? The absence of written records only deepens the mystery. Without any explanation from the people who built the site, we're left to piece together the puzzle using only the stones, the carvings, and the remnants of what they left behind. There is, of course, the possibility that Göbekli Tepe wasn't built by a simple, primitive society, but by something else entirely, something older, more advanced, and perhaps even forgotten by history. This raises the tantalizing possibility that Göbekli Tepe could be the remnants of a lost civilization, one that possessed knowledge and technology far beyond what we associate with prehistoric humans. Could it be that Göbekli Tepe was not just a religious site, but a center of lost knowledge, a place where ancient wisdom was preserved and passed down through the ages, only to be buried and lost to time? Could the builders of Göbekli Tepe have been part of a forgotten civilization, one that had already mastered technologies we only rediscovered in later ages? In recent years, some researchers have begun to explore more speculative ideas, suggesting that Göbekli Tepe could be a kind of time capsule, a repository of ancient knowledge meant to survive the ages. They propose that the site was built by a group of people who understood the importance of preserving their knowledge for future generations. But what if the knowledge contained in Göbekli Tepe was not just practical, but esoteric? What if the carvings and symbols on the pillars represent a form of knowledge that has been lost to history, a knowledge that could change our understanding of the past, and perhaps even our future? Theories about Göbekli Tepe are as varied as they are intriguing. Some believe that it was a place of religious significance, a temple built to honor the gods, while others suggest it could have been an astronomical observatory designed to track celestial events. But there are those who believe the truth is even more mysterious, that Göbekli Tepe was a center of esoteric knowledge, a place where ancient secrets were passed down through the ages. Could the site be a monument to a lost civilization, one that understood the forces of nature in ways we can only imagine today? No matter what the true purpose of Göbekli Tepe may have been, its discovery has changed the way we view the past. It challenges everything we thought we knew about the origins of human civilization, and it opens the door to new possibilities, new ideas, and new ways of understanding our place in the world. The mysteries of Göbekli Tepe are far from solved, but one thing is certain. This ancient site holds secrets that may forever alter our understanding of history. And as we continue to uncover its hidden truths, we are left to wonder, what else is still buried, waiting to be discovered, beneath the surface of our world? For thousands of years, Göbekli Tepe remained hidden beneath layers of earth and time, a forgotten relic of the distant past. To most of the modern world, it was little more than a curiosity, just another hill in the arid, rocky landscape of southeastern Turkey. However, in the early 1990s, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt stumbled upon this forgotten site, sparking a series of discoveries that would forever change our understanding of human history. When Schmidt first laid eyes on Göbekli Tepe, He couldn't have known that he was about to unearth one of the most profound mysteries of the ancient world. At the time, he had no reason to suspect that the mounds of earth before him concealed the remnants of a complex, sophisticated, and ancient site that predated everything previously known to archaeology. It wasn't until the early excavations began that the true magnitude of Göbekli Tepe started to emerge. The first few months were tentative, the work slow and methodical. At first, the site seemed deceptively simple. A few scattered stones, nothing unusual. But as the layers of dirt were removed, the hidden pillars slowly began to reveal themselves. What lay beneath was not just a collection of stones, but a meticulously planned complex of megalithic structures that would challenge everything archaeologists thought they knew about the early stages of human civilization. This wasn't just a primitive burial site or a crude stone circle like Stonehenge. This was something far more sophisticated, something that implied an advanced understanding of geometry, engineering, and possibly even astronomy. The scale and precision of the site were unlike anything previously uncovered in prehistoric sites, particularly ones attributed to people still living in hunter-gatherer societies. Schmidt and his team found themselves stunned by what they were uncovering. At the heart of Göbekli Tepe lay massive pillars, each weighing several tons, some standing over 16 feet tall. These were no ordinary stones. They were carved with intricate reliefs of animals, lions, foxes, birds, snakes, and scorpions, that seemed far too advanced for the time they were created. The sheer scale of the site suggested that a vast workforce had been required to build it, something inconceivable for a society of hunter-gatherers. What made this discovery even more remarkable was the fact that there was no sign of permanent settlement nearby. There were no signs of the traditional markers of civilization, no evidence of agriculture, no permanent dwellings, no signs of trade. In fact, the very existence of Göbekli Tepe challenged the conventional timeline of human history. This site appeared to be too complex for its era, too advanced for a time when humanity was still primarily nomadic. As the excavations progressed, the team began to piece together the layout of the site. It wasn't just a haphazard collection of stones. It was a carefully planned structure with a clear purpose. The pillars were arranged in concentric circles, suggesting a level of design and intent that was far beyond what had been expected from societies of that time. But why? What purpose did this immense effort serve? Initially, many scholars believed that Göbekli Tepe was a temple, a place of religious or ritualistic significance, where early humans gathered to worship their gods. After all, the site was located in a remote area, far from any major settlements, which seemed to support the idea that it was a ceremonial site. The carvings of animals on the pillars, which were seen as symbolic representations of power or divine beings, also suggested that religion played a central role in the site's purpose. But as research continued, a more disturbing question began to emerge. Was Göbekli Tepe really just a religious site, or was it something far more significant? The idea that a simple, nomadic people could construct such a complex site, one that required an immense amount of labor, knowledge, and skill, began to feel increasingly unlikely. There was no evidence to suggest that the builders of Göbekli Tepe had access to advanced technologies. No metals were found at the site, and no written records had survived. Yet, somehow, these people managed to create something that seemed to defy the limitations of their time. The more researchers looked at Göbekli Tepe, the more it seemed as if this site could be a place of hidden knowledge, something far beyond simple religious rituals. But what kind of knowledge could it have been? And why was it built in such a remote, isolated location? Some researchers began to entertain more radical ideas. Could Göbekli Tepe have been an ancient observatory, a site where early humans tracked the stars and mapped out celestial events? The alignment of some of the pillars seemed to suggest this possibility, as certain pillars pointed toward specific constellations. The people who built Göbekli Tepe may have had an understanding of the heavens that was far more advanced than anything we'd previously attributed to Stone Age cultures. This led to a fascinating hypothesis. Perhaps Göbekli Tepe wasn't just a temple or a ceremonial center, but a site of astronomical and esoteric significance. The builders may have been using the site to align themselves with the cosmos, marking important astrological events, or even tracking the cycles of the stars for agricultural purposes. Still, there were many unanswered questions. Why was Gobekli Tepe buried? This was perhaps the most perplexing aspect of the site. After all, if it was a place of such importance, why was it hidden away, covered with layers of soil and stone? The fact that it had been deliberately buried suggested that its preservation was of utmost importance. But who buried it and why? Some suggested that it may have been an act of protection, perhaps to safeguard the site from natural disasters or invading forces. Others believed that the burial of Gobekli Tepe was part of a larger plan to conceal the site's secrets. The idea that Gobekli Tepe was deliberately hidden raised the unsettling possibility that the knowledge it contained was considered too dangerous or too sacred for later generations to access. The mystery of its burial, coupled with the site's complexity, led some scholars to propose that Gobekli Tepe might have been built by a civilization that was far older and more advanced than anything we have discovered to date. Could the site have been constructed by a forgotten civilization, one that possessed knowledge and technology that was lost to time? This theory suggested that the people who built Gobekli Tepe may have been part of a long-forgotten civilization, one that knew how to harness the power of the stars and understood the forces of nature in ways we can only dream of today. Perhaps they had access to ancient technologies now lost that allowed them to construct such a massive and sophisticated site. But as the excavation continued, one thing became clear. Gobekli Tepe was not just another archaeological site. It was something far more significant. It was a puzzle, a complex and ancient enigma that seemed to promise the answers to questions that had been asked for centuries. What if Gobekli Tepe was more than just a site of religious worship, or even a simple observatory? What if it was a repository of ancient knowledge, a place where secrets were preserved, waiting to be uncovered? The more researchers dug into Gobekli Tepe, the more they realized that this was not just a site of archaeological interest, but a doorway to a deeper understanding of human history and the forgotten mysteries of the ancient world. Gobekli Tepe's rediscovery had sparked a revolution in archaeology, challenging centuries of established thought. It posed the uncomfortable question of whether our understanding of the timeline of human history might be fundamentally flawed. If a complex, sophisticated site like Gobekli Tepe could have been built so long ago, what else might we have missed in the pages of history? What other ancient mysteries remain hidden, waiting for the right moment to be unearthed? As the years went on, the discovery of Gobekli Tepe only deepened the mystery, hinting at a lost chapter of human history that could rewrite everything we thought we knew about the past. Gobekli Tepe was no longer just an archaeological site. It was a symbol of the unknown, a reminder that there's so much more to human history than we have been taught. Its secrets are still buried beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to seek them. But for now, the questions remain. What was Gobekli Tepe? And what truths about our past are still waiting to be revealed? The grandeur of Gobekli Tepe is not merely in its size or the complexity of its structure, but in the sheer precision with which it was built. When one stands before the towering stone pillars, the first thing that strikes you is the scale and intricacy of the construction. These massive megaliths, some weighing over 16 tons, stand arranged in precise circular patterns, their surfaces etched with carvings of animals, lions, scorpions, snakes, and birds, each one finely detailed and seemingly alive, as if they were trying to tell a story of a world long forgotten. These pillars were not simply arranged haphazardly. They were deliberately placed, each one a part of a larger design, suggesting that those who constructed Gobekli Tepe possessed a deep understanding of geometry and spatial organization, a knowledge that, to this day, baffles archaeologists. But what is perhaps even more extraordinary is the fact that the people who built this structure were not supposed to have had the means to do so. They were still living in a time when the wheel had not yet been invented, when metal tools were unknown, and when agriculture had not yet taken hold as a widespread practice. And yet, here they were, constructing one of the most intricate and monumental structures in the ancient world. How could this be? The sheer engineering feat of Göbekli Tepe is one of its most mind-boggling aspects. The stones themselves were quarried from a distance, transported to the site, and then carefully shaped and erected with remarkable precision. Some of these stones are so large that it is hard to imagine how they could have been moved without the technology of the wheel or advanced machinery. The builders of Göbekli Tepe had no iron or bronze tools to cut and shape the stones. Yet the surfaces of the pillars are smooth, the carvings deep and clear, suggesting that they were worked with a skill and technique that we have no direct evidence for in other Stone Age cultures. The fact that such a site could have been constructed with nothing but rudimentary tools challenges everything we think we know about the technological limitations of prehistoric societies. The design of Göbekli Tepe also reveals an incredible level of thought and planning. The layout of the site is not random. It is carefully arranged, with the large central pillars forming the heart of each structure. Surrounding these central stones are smaller pillars, all arranged in a circular pattern, creating a sense of symmetry and harmony. This kind of design suggests that the people who built Göbekli Tepe were not just working instinctively, but were following a precise blueprint, one that required advanced knowledge of spatial relationships and the principles of construction. It is almost as if they were creating a sacred space, one that was designed not just to impress, but to hold a deeper meaning, perhaps a reflection of the cosmos or the spiritual and celestial order that these ancient people believed in. As the site was uncovered, archaeologists were also struck by the presence of unusually large, sculpted pillars at the center of the circles. These towering stones, which could reach heights of up to 16 feet, were not simply functional. They were decorated with intricate carvings, many of which are still mysterious. Some of the carvings feature animals that are familiar, such as foxes, birds, and boars, while others depict creatures that are more enigmatic, such as snakes, scorpions, and even the strange figure of a human head with a large, exaggerated face. The detail of these carvings suggests a deep symbolic meaning, though what these symbols represent remains a matter of much debate. Some scholars believe the carvings are representations of the gods or spirits that the builders worshipped, while others see them as a kind of spiritual guide, marking the stages of human existence or representing the forces of nature. The presence of animal symbols in particular raises many intriguing questions. The animals carved into the stones seem to hold a special significance for the builders, suggesting that these creatures may have held symbolic or ritualistic importance. In many ancient cultures, animals were often seen as embodiments of spiritual forces, representing everything from the cycles of life and death to the elements of the earth, air, and water. Could the animals on the stones of Göbekli Tepe represent more than just decorative motifs? Were they part of an elaborate spiritual or religious system designed to invoke the presence of these forces in the physical world? The idea that these carvings were not just artistic but held deeper, mystical meanings adds an air of mystery to the site. What is even more fascinating is the way the builders of Göbekli Tepe arranged these stones. The pillars are not placed randomly or haphazardly. They form intricate patterns that suggest a deliberate design. The placement of the stones seems to be based on a deep understanding of geometry and spatial alignment. Some researchers have even suggested that the design of Göbekli Tepe could have been a reflection of the stars in the night sky. There are subtle alignments between the pillars and specific celestial events, such as the solstices and equinoxes, that suggest the site may have been used as an observatory of sorts. If this theory holds true, then Göbekli Tepe would not only be an architectural marvel, but an astronomical one as well. A place where the movement of the heavens was studied and understood in ways that we do not yet fully comprehend. While the stones themselves are impressive, the location of Göbekli Tepe is equally significant. The site is situated on a high hilltop, offering a commanding view of the surrounding landscape. This strategic positioning suggests that the builders of Göbekli Tepe may have had a spiritual or symbolic reason for choosing this particular site. The elevated position could have represented a connection to the heavens or the gods, a way to establish a sacred space that was closer to the divine. The fact that Göbekli Tepe is located in such a remote area also adds to its mystery. Why build such a monumental structure far away from other settlements? Some theorists believe that the site may have been intentionally isolated, a place that was meant to be separate from the everyday world, a place where sacred rituals could be performed without interference. The sheer scale of the site, combined with the advanced techniques used in its construction, suggests that the people who built Göbekli Tepe were not simple foragers or hunter-gatherers. They were organized, highly skilled, and capable of undertaking large-scale projects. The construction of such a site would have required significant labor, and it is likely that the work was done by a specialized workforce, possibly drawn from different regions. This raises the question of whether Göbekli Tepe was part of a larger network of sites, a part of a broader cultural or religious system that spanned across the ancient world. Some researchers speculate that Göbekli Tepe may have been a pilgrimage site, a place where people from far and wide came to connect with the divine. The large scale of the site and its elaborate construction suggest that it may have been a focal point for ritual or spiritual activities, attracting people from distant lands. One of the most striking aspects of the site is the absence of any evidence of permanent habitation. There are no signs of the kind of domestic structures that would be typical of a settlement, no evidence of long-term living arrangements. This raises further questions about the true purpose of Göbekli Tepe. Was it a ceremonial site that people traveled to for short periods, perhaps for specific rituals or festivals? Or was it something more, a kind of center of learning, a place where knowledge was passed down through generations? The absence of permanent settlement suggests that Göbekli Tepe was not meant to be a home or a community center, but rather a sacred space. A space designed for something far more profound and mysterious. In the grander scope of human history, Göbekli Tepe stands as a testament to the capabilities of early humans, to their ability to envision and construct monumental works, even without the advanced technologies we take for granted today. The site challenges our understanding of the timeline of civilization, suggesting that the early humans who built it were capable of much more than we have traditionally believed. As we continue to explore the mystery of Göbekli Tepe, we are left to wonder, what other secrets might be hidden beneath the stones? What other lost knowledge might be waiting to be uncovered? The answers to these questions may hold the key to understanding the true purpose of this ancient wonder. The sheer brilliance of Göbekli Tepe is not merely in its monumental scale or the grandness of its design, but in the precision and sophistication that seems to defy the capabilities of the time it was built. As you stand before the towering stone pillars, it is almost impossible not to feel a sense of awe. These massive stones, some weighing over 16 tons and reaching as high as 16 feet, are arranged in intricate patterns that suggest a mind behind them capable of extraordinary planning and understanding. What is even more astonishing is that these stones, while massive in size and weight, are carved with incredible detail. Depictions of lions, scorpions, snakes, and foxes are etched into the surface of the pillars, and each carving seems to come alive as if it were more than just a design. The craftsmanship of these carvings is astonishing, especially considering the tools that were available to the builders. How did a group of hunter-gatherers, people who had not yet discovered the wheel or metalworking, manage to create such a highly detailed and precisely crafted structure? The design of Göbekli Tepe immediately challenges everything we know about prehistoric human capabilities. These pillars, carefully arranged in circular formations, were not just placed at random. They form a structure that speaks of advanced knowledge of geometry, spatial organization, and possibly even astronomy. To construct such a site, the builders must have had an extraordinary understanding of how to arrange stones in a way that would create harmony and balance. The very fact that these pillars are positioned with such precision suggests that the creators were not just building blindly, but were working according to a well-thought-out plan, possibly one that was part of a larger design. But why go to such lengths? Why were these people, who were not settled in one place and lacked the technological advancements we associate with civilization, capable of such architectural brilliance? What were they trying to achieve? The complexity of the site becomes even more apparent when you consider the technology, or lack thereof, that was available to the builders. There were no advanced tools, no iron or bronze to work with, and certainly no machinery. And yet, somehow, the builders managed to transport, carve, and erect these enormous stones with remarkable skill. The absence of metal tools is particularly perplexing because many of the stones were worked so finely that they seem to have been shaped with the utmost care. This defies all expectations for the time. How could a society without even the simplest technologies possess the knowledge to carve such perfect reliefs, let alone move and place these enormous stones with such precision? One of the most remarkable features of Göbekli Tepe is the way the site is laid out. The stones are arranged in circles, with the largest pillars placed in the center, surrounded by smaller ones. This circular arrangement is far from arbitrary. The layout suggests that the site was not just a place to gather, but was designed with a deeper purpose in mind. Some scholars speculate that the design reflects the order of the cosmos, a microcosm of the universe. The positioning of the pillars might represent the alignment of the stars, a way for the builders to chart the heavens and perhaps mark important celestial events, such as solstices or equinoxes. This idea suggests that the site could have served as an astronomical observatory, a place where the movements of the stars were tracked and the rhythms of the universe were celebrated or understood. This theory is supported by the alignment of some of the pillars, which appear to point towards specific constellations. If Göbekli Tepe was indeed an observatory, it would place the builders on an entirely different level of understanding than what we typically associate with Stone Age societies. The idea that they could have been studying the stars with such precision, long before the invention of writing, long before any known advanced civilizations, raises the question, how did they come to possess this knowledge? What did they know about the stars, the planets, and the movements of the heavens that we have only rediscovered in modern times? The intricate carvings on the pillars further add to the mystery. The animals depicted on the stones are not mere representations of the creatures in the surrounding environment. They seem to carry symbolic weight. Some animals, such as the lion and the vulture, were often associated with death or the afterlife in various ancient cultures, suggesting that the builders of Göbekli Tepe may have had spiritual beliefs that were deeply tied to these symbols. The snakes and scorpions might have represented danger, the forces of chaos, or protection, while the boar could have symbolized fertility or abundance. Each animal, it seems, was chosen with purpose, its meaning intricately woven into the fabric of the site's creation. But what do these carvings really signify? Are they simply religious symbols, or do they represent something deeper, perhaps a kind of cosmic language that is yet to be fully understood? Some scholars have suggested that the animals carved on the pillars could have represented the constellations or the celestial bodies that the builders of Göbekli Tepe observed. This would make the carvings not just artistic representations, but a kind of star map, one that captured the patterns of the night sky and encoded them in stone for future generations. The idea that the carvings are more than just decorative motifs suggests that the builders of Göbekli Tepe had a much deeper understanding of the world around them than we have previously credited to early societies. These people were not merely creating art for art's sake. They were encoding knowledge about the natural world, about the stars, about life and death, into the very stones of the site. Yet, despite the obvious sophistication of Göbekli Tepe's design, there are still many unanswered questions. For one, why was the site constructed in the first place? What was the true purpose of this grand undertaking? Archaeologists have long debated whether Göbekli Tepe was a religious site, a temple for ancient rituals, or whether it had a more secular function. The sheer scale and complexity of the site suggest that it was not just a place for occasional gatherings or ceremonies. It may have been a center of learning or a place where knowledge was passed down through generations. Its design, which is both symbolic and precise, hints at a level of organization that goes far beyond what we might expect from early hunter-gatherers. Even more perplexing is the fact that there is no evidence of permanent settlement at Göbekli Tepe. There are no homes, no villages, no farms in the area surrounding the site. This suggests that the people who built Göbekli Tepe were not settled in one place. They were likely nomadic, moving from one location to another. Yet they were capable of assembling in large numbers to create this monumental structure. Some researchers believe that Göbekli Tepe may have been a pilgrimage site, a place where people from far and wide gathered to perform rituals or to access sacred knowledge. This would explain the lack of permanent settlement. Göbekli Tepe was a place for special gatherings, not a community hub for daily life. The construction of Göbekli Tepe would have required a large workforce, and the site itself suggests a high degree of social organization. Despite the lack of permanent settlements, the builders of Göbekli Tepe were clearly able to coordinate the efforts of many people over a long period of time. They must have had leaders, specialists, and craftsmen who could work together to create something of this scale. The idea of such a complex society existing at a time when most humans were still living in small, nomadic groups is truly astonishing. Göbekli Tepe raises the possibility that early human societies were more complex, more capable, and more connected to the cosmos than we have traditionally believed. In the end, the story of Göbekli Tepe is one of mystery and wonder. The site's design, the sophistication of its construction, and the enigmatic carvings on its pillars all suggest a culture that was capable of achieving great things, even without the advanced technologies we take for granted today. What we see in Göbekli Tepe is a reflection of the untapped potential of early human civilization, a glimpse into a past that we have yet to fully understand. As we continue to study the site, we are left with one haunting question. What knowledge did the builders of Göbekli Tepe possess, and what secrets do the stones still hold? Göbekli Tepe's enduring mystery lies not just in its construction or its purpose, but in the deliberate burial of the site itself. As the layers of earth and stone were cleared away, revealing the enormous megaliths and their cryptic carvings, another question emerged. Why was this immense structure buried in the first place? The very fact that the builders of Göbekli Tepe intentionally sealed it away raises profound implications, suggesting that the site might have held secrets or knowledge so valuable or dangerous that it needed to be hidden from the world. The idea of a sacred site being deliberately buried is a puzzle in itself. Typically, when people build monumental structures, they do so with the intent for these structures to be seen, revered, and utilized for generations to come. But in the case of Göbekli Tepe, the opposite occurred. Instead of being preserved and maintained, the site was deliberately covered over and left to be lost to time. What could have led the people of Göbekli Tepe to make such a decision? And who, or what, was responsible for this act of concealment? The burial of Göbekli Tepe is as much a part of its history as its construction. It was not simply abandoned, nor was it the result of neglect. There is clear evidence that the site was intentionally filled in with rubble, earth, and stones, effectively hiding it from the world for thousands of years. The deliberate nature of this act suggests that whoever buried the site had a profound understanding of its importance, and possibly the power of the knowledge it contained. The question arises, was this burial done out of a desire to protect the site, to preserve its sacred nature, or was it to ensure that the secrets of Göbekli Tepe remained hidden? Some researchers speculate that the burial may have been done as an act of preservation, to protect the site from natural disasters, invasions, or environmental changes. However, this explanation does not fully account for the level of intent behind the burial. It is not the kind of decision one would make lightly. The idea that the people who built Göbekli Tepe may have buried it deliberately to safeguard it from external threats, be they natural or human, introduces an unsettling thought. What were they protecting it from? And what dangers or consequences might have been linked to the knowledge stored within the site? Alternatively, some theories suggest that the burial of Göbekli Tepe could have been an attempt to hide or suppress the knowledge contained within the site. What if the builders of Göbekli Tepe, or those who came after them, feared that the teachings, wisdom, or power associated with the site could be misused? The idea that this ancient knowledge was deemed too dangerous to be accessed by future generations is a chilling one. There are numerous examples throughout history of knowledge being hidden or suppressed, whether for political reasons, religious motivations, or fear of its power. Could Göbekli Tepe have been a repository of knowledge that was considered too powerful, too sacred, or even too dangerous for the masses to know? The concept of forbidden knowledge is one that has appeared in many cultures and mythologies, suggesting that there may be certain truths or teachings that, if discovered, could have a profound impact on the world. The intentional burial of Göbekli Tepe could be seen as an act of controlling or restricting access to this knowledge, ensuring that it remained concealed from those who might not have been prepared for its significance. This theory also raises the possibility that the knowledge contained within Göbekli Tepe may have had a spiritual or esoteric nature. In many ancient cultures, there was a belief that certain wisdom, particularly knowledge related to the cosmos, the stars, or the natural world, was reserved for a select few, often priests, shamans, or initiates. The idea that this sacred knowledge might have been guarded, hidden away from the masses to prevent its misuse or misunderstanding, is deeply embedded in the history of human civilization. Throughout history, there have been secret societies, mystery schools, and religious orders that have guarded knowledge, only passing it down to a chosen few. Was Göbekli Tepe part of this ancient tradition? Was it a place where esoteric knowledge was passed down? And if so, why was it buried? Did those who built Göbekli Tepe believe that the power of this knowledge could not be trusted in the hands of the uninitiated? As we continue to dig deeper into the mystery of Göbekli Tepe, it becomes clear that the burial of the site may hold as much significance as the construction of it. While some scholars have proposed that the burial was simply a way to protect the site from the elements or from invaders, there's a growing sense that the burial could have been a conscious act to preserve the site's sacred or secret nature. This act of concealment adds an extra layer of intrigue to Göbekli Tepe, suggesting that its true purpose may have been far more profound and complex than we initially thought. The burial of Göbekli Tepe also raises the possibility that the builders may have had a deep understanding of the passage of time and the need to protect and preserve knowledge for future generations. The site's hidden nature suggests that the builders understood that they were creating something that needed to be kept safe for posterity. But what was the purpose of keeping it hidden? Was it meant to be rediscovered at a later time, when humanity was better equipped to understand it? Some theorists speculate that Göbekli Tepe was intended to be a time capsule, a place where knowledge was preserved for future generations to unlock, much like an ancient archive waiting for the right moment to be uncovered. Could the builders of Göbekli Tepe have been aware that their civilization would eventually fade, and that the knowledge contained within the site would need to be rediscovered by future cultures, long after they were gone? If this is the case, then the very act of uncovering Göbekli Tepe is a kind of reawakening, a rediscovery of lost wisdom that was hidden away for millennia. The idea that the knowledge of Göbekli Tepe could be reawakened adds a layer of mysticism to the site, suggesting that there may be much more to it than just the stones and carvings we see today. Could the buried stones themselves hold clues, waiting to be uncovered by those with the eyes to see? Is there a message hidden within the design of the site, a deeper truth that remains just out of reach? This question brings us back to the potential purpose of Göbekli Tepe. Was it a place of worship, as many initially believed, or was it a repository of ancient knowledge, perhaps containing the keys to understanding the universe and the forces that shape it? The mystery of the burial suggests that Göbekli Tepe was something far more than just a religious site. It was a place of power, a space where profound truths were either protected or concealed. The act of burial, far from being a simple matter of abandonment, could be seen as an intentional gesture, one designed to preserve, protect, and possibly hide the sacred knowledge embedded in the very fabric of the site. The fact that Göbekli Tepe remained hidden for so long suggests that its rediscovery may be part of a larger, more cosmic design, one that goes beyond the realm of archaeology and into the realm of the esoteric. Could Göbekli Tepe be part of a larger cosmic cycle, one where ancient knowledge is hidden and later rediscovered by humanity at key moments in our history? The burial of the site raises the tantalizing possibility that the knowledge contained within Göbekli Tepe is not just a relic of the past, but a key to the future, waiting to be unlocked when the time is right. As we continue to explore the mystery of Göbekli Tepe, the burial of the site remains one of the most enigmatic aspects. It is not just the stones and carvings that we must examine, but the very act of concealment itself. Why was it hidden? Who made the decision to bury it? And what do they hope to achieve by doing so? These questions, though difficult to answer, are central to understanding the true purpose of Göbekli Tepe. The answers may not be found in the stones themselves, but in the story of the people who buried them, and in the knowledge that they hope to protect or conceal for future generations. As we peel back the layers of history, we are left with a haunting thought. What if Göbekli Tepe was never meant to be fully understood by us? What if we are only just beginning to scratch the surface of its true purpose? And, perhaps most intriguingly, what if the full significance of Göbekli Tepe will not be revealed until the right moment in time? The mystery of Göbekli Tepe's purpose deepens when we consider the possibility that it was not merely a place of worship, but a center for something much more profound, an ancient repository of knowledge that was meant to be passed down to future generations. The sheer scale of the site, its advanced construction techniques, and the intricacy of the carving suggest that it was not just built as a religious or ceremonial space, but as a kind of sacred archive, one that encoded knowledge far beyond the ordinary understanding of its time. But what was this knowledge? And why would such a sophisticated site have been built at a time when humanity was still in the early stages of societal development? These questions are central to understanding the true nature of Göbekli Tepe, and they point to a possible theory that challenges conventional views of prehistory, that this site was built to preserve a body of knowledge that could not yet be understood. The idea that Göbekli Tepe may have been a repository of hidden knowledge becomes even more compelling when we look at the carvings on the pillars. These images of animals, abstract symbols, and strange figures are not simply decorative. They are carefully planned and deliberate, each one potentially containing an encrypted message or a piece of lost wisdom. The carvings of animals such as lions, vultures, and serpents, for instance, are not just random depictions of creatures that lived in the area. In many ancient cultures, animals were seen as symbols of cosmic forces, representing various aspects of the natural world or the divine. The lion, often associated with power and kingship, could represent a connection to the divine or a guardian figure. The serpent, on the other hand, is a symbol found in countless mythologies, often associated with transformation, wisdom, and the cyclical nature of life. The presence of these animals, carved in such intricate detail, raises the possibility that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not merely illustrating the creatures of their environment, but were embedding deep symbolic meaning into the very fabric of the site. This theory becomes even more intriguing when we consider the possibility that the site was meant to preserve astronomical knowledge. Göbekli Tepe is arranged in a series of concentric circles, with the largest pillars placed in the center, suggesting that the site may have been a sort of cosmic map or a celestial observatory. The alignment of some of the pillars seems to suggest that they were positioned to track certain constellations or celestial events. If Göbekli Tepe was indeed a site for astronomical observation, then the carvings of animals and other figures could have been part of a larger system of celestial symbolism, a way of encoding knowledge about the stars, the planets, and the cycles of the cosmos. The builders of Göbekli Tepe might have believed that the movements of the heavens held profound significance, and that understanding these movements was key to understanding the divine order of the universe. Some researchers have suggested that Göbekli Tepe's carvings and layout may encode a form of ancient star map, one that could have been used to predict important events, such as equinoxes, solstices, or the movement of specific stars. In many ancient cultures, the alignment of buildings and monuments with celestial bodies was thought to have spiritual or ritual significance. The fact that Göbekli Tepe is positioned in a way that seems to align with specific astronomical phenomena suggests that the people who built it may have had an advanced understanding of the stars and the cosmos, far more sophisticated than we previously thought possible for that era. This knowledge, if it was indeed encoded in the site's design, could have been part of the secret teachings or esoteric knowledge that the builders sought to preserve. The idea of Göbekli Tepe as an archive of sacred knowledge is supported by the location of the site itself. Positioned on a hilltop in a remote area of southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe was not located near any major settlements or trade routes. This suggests that it may have been intentionally isolated, a place where only select individuals could access it. The lack of any signs of permanent habitation in the surrounding area reinforces the idea that Göbekli Tepe was not meant to be a place of everyday life, but rather a specialized, sacred space, perhaps used by a select group of initiates or priesthoods. The isolation of the site could indicate that it was a kind of temple of knowledge, where the ancient wisdom of the stars, the natural world, and the divine order were preserved and passed on to a chosen few. What's particularly striking is that Göbekli Tepe's builders were not settled societies, but were part of a hunter-gatherer culture that, at the time, was thought to be too primitive to have developed the kind of social complexity needed to construct such an elaborate and monumental structure. This raises the possibility that the builders were part of an advanced, albeit lost, tradition of knowledge, one that may have been passed down through generations and encoded in sites like Göbekli Tepe. The fact that this knowledge survived in the form of a grand architectural monument, rather than in written records, suggests that it was intended to be preserved in a way that would withstand the ravages of time. The decision to bury the site, rather than leave it open for future generations to easily access, further underscores the idea that the knowledge contained within it was meant to be safeguarded until the right moment. The idea of ancient wisdom being preserved in physical form, encoded in monuments like Göbekli Tepe, is not as far-fetched as it might initially seem. Throughout history, there are numerous examples of societies that sought to protect sacred knowledge by embedding it in monuments, temples, and other enduring structures. In many cases, the knowledge preserved in these monuments was hidden from the public and only accessible to a select few. The famous Library of the Ancient Egyptians, for example, was said to contain vast amounts of esoteric knowledge, much of which was never meant to be seen by ordinary people. Similarly, in ancient Greece, certain sacred teachings were kept secret and only shared with initiates of mystery schools like the Eleusinian Mysteries. It is not unreasonable to think that the builders of Göbekli Tepe may have been following a similar tradition, one in which sacred or forbidden knowledge was encoded into the very structure of the site, waiting to be rediscovered by future generations. The deliberate burial of the site raises yet another layer of mystery. Who buried it, and why? Could it have been the builders themselves, who sought to protect the sacred knowledge contained within the site from being misused or misunderstood? Or was it a later group, one that feared the power of the knowledge and sought to suppress it? Some have suggested that the burial of Göbekli Tepe was the result of a cultural or religious shift, one that led to the abandonment of the old ways in favor of a new worldview. If Göbekli Tepe was a repository of knowledge that was considered sacred or powerful, it is possible that later generations buried the site as part of an effort to erase or suppress the past. This theory would also explain why the site was abandoned and forgotten for so many millennia. It was deliberately hidden from history, waiting for the right time to be rediscovered. The mystery of the burial deepens when we consider the possibility that Göbekli Tepe was meant to serve as a kind of time capsule, a monument designed to preserve knowledge for future generations. The builders of Göbekli Tepe may have known that their civilization would eventually fade and that the knowledge contained in the site would need to be rediscovered by future societies when they were ready to understand it. If this was the case, then the burial of Göbekli Tepe was not an act of abandonment, but an act of preservation, an attempt to safeguard ancient wisdom until humanity was prepared to unlock its secrets. In this sense, the site itself becomes a symbol of the cyclical nature of history, a reminder that knowledge, once lost, can eventually be rediscovered when the time is right. This brings us to an even more intriguing question. If Göbekli Tepe was indeed a time capsule, what knowledge might it contain, and why was it considered so important? The sheer scale of the site and the sophistication of its design suggest that it may have been built to encode knowledge of a profound and universal nature, knowledge about the stars, the Earth, and the forces that govern the universe. This could include astronomical knowledge, spiritual teachings, or perhaps even advanced scientific principles that were lost to history. If this knowledge was hidden away to protect it from being misused, then the discovery of Göbekli Tepe represents more than just an archaeological find. It could be a key to unlocking a deeper understanding of the universe and our place within it. As we continue to study Göbekli Tepe, we find ourselves confronting more questions than answers. What was the true purpose of this ancient site? Was it a place of ritual and worship, or a repository of hidden knowledge, encoded in stone for future generations? Was it buried deliberately to protect its secrets, or was it hidden away for other, more sinister reasons? Whatever the answer may be, one thing is certain. Göbekli Tepe is a site of unparalleled mystery and significance, one that continues to challenge our understanding of the ancient world and our place in the grand tapestry of history. As we continue to delve deeper into the mystery of Göbekli Tepe, the question of who the builders were, and more importantly, what kind of society they represented, becomes increasingly central to understanding the true purpose of the site. The conventional narrative places Göbekli Tepe's construction within the context of a hunter-gatherer society, one that was supposedly on the brink of transitioning into agricultural settlements. But this simple explanation does little to account for the complexity and scale of Göbekli Tepe. This remarkable site, with its finely crafted stone pillars and intricate carvings, suggests that its builders were part of a much more advanced culture, one that possessed not just the physical skills required for such construction, but the intellectual, spiritual, and organizational capabilities that are often associated with much later civilizations. Could the creators of Göbekli Tepe have been part of a forgotten culture or lost civilization, one that existed long before the rise of the first cities? The idea that the builders of Göbekli Tepe might have come from a lost civilization is both tantalizing and perplexing. After all, the technological and cultural achievements displayed at the site suggest a level of sophistication that should not have been possible for a society that was still living in the Stone Age. The precision of the stonework, the astronomical alignments, and the symbolic carvings all point to a highly organized society, one that had mastered certain arts and sciences long before they should have. There is no doubt that Göbekli Tepe was more than just a religious center. It was a monument to a culture that seemed to possess knowledge and skills that were far beyond what we would expect from early hunter-gatherers. What if the people who built Göbekli Tepe were not simply nomadic tribes, but rather the remnants of a much older, advanced civilization? Some researchers have posited that Göbekli Tepe was built by a group of people who had inherited the knowledge of a lost civilization, one that had disappeared long before recorded history began. This lost civilization might have been destroyed by some cataclysmic event, leaving only fragments of their knowledge behind. In this theory, the people who built Göbekli Tepe were not the original creators of the site, but rather a later group who inherited and preserved the knowledge contained in the stones. This could explain why Göbekli Tepe seems so out of place in its time period, why it appears to be a product of a culture that existed far earlier than what we know about human history. These ancient people could have been custodians of lost knowledge, guardians of secrets that were passed down through generations, waiting for the day when humanity would be ready to unlock them. There is also the possibility that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were influenced by external sources, perhaps even visitors from far-flung lands or from an unknown civilization. In ancient times, long before the rise of modern civilizations, it is believed that trade routes and cultural exchanges spanned vast distances, connecting people from the farthest reaches of the earth. Could it be that the knowledge and technology required to build such a sophisticated structure at Göbekli Tepe came from outside the region? Some theorists have suggested that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were in contact with a much older and more advanced culture, perhaps even one that existed outside of the historical record. These external influences could have imparted a wealth of knowledge, from advanced construction techniques to astronomical insights, that enabled the builders to create something as extraordinary as Göbekli Tepe. As we consider the idea of external influences, It's important to remember that in the ancient world, such cross-cultural exchanges were far more common than we often give credit for. There are numerous examples of early cultures borrowing or adapting knowledge from others. The Egyptians, for example, incorporated influences from the Mesopotamians, the Sumerians, and even cultures from further east. In the same vein, the builders of Göbekli Tepe may have had access to ideas, tools, or techniques that were brought to them from distant lands, knowledge that had been passed along through centuries from one civilization to another. If this were the case, it would suggest that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were part of a much larger, interconnected world of ancient cultures, one that spanned continents and exchanged ideas long before the first empires arose. Alternatively, there is the possibility that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were inspired by something entirely different, a natural or cosmic event that inspired them to build such a monument. Some researchers have proposed that Göbekli Tepe was constructed after some kind of celestial or earthly cataclysm, perhaps a massive cosmic event such as the impact of a comet or asteroid, which would have had profound psychological and cultural effects on the people who witnessed it. In the wake of such an event, it is conceivable that the survivors, shaken by the destruction and change they had witnessed, might have come together to create a lasting monument, one that reflected their new understanding of the world. This theory suggests that Göbekli Tepe might have been a response to a global trauma, built as a way to reconnect with the cosmos and to ensure that the knowledge needed to survive in the new world would be preserved for future generations. The idea of Göbekli Tepe as a response to cosmic or earthly disaster brings us back to the symbolism found at the site. The carvings of animals, particularly the lions, vultures, and serpents, could be representations of forces beyond human control, forces that were seen as both destructive and life-giving. The serpent, for example, is a symbol found in many ancient cultures, often associated with both creation and destruction, life and death. The lion, on the other hand, is often a symbol of power and protection, perhaps reflecting a desire to harness or tame the forces of nature. The vulture, a bird of death and rebirth, could be seen as a symbol of the cyclical nature of life and the necessity of renewal. Taken together, these symbols could reflect an ancient understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, a belief that the forces of nature, the cosmos, and human civilization are all linked, and that by understanding these forces, one could harness their power for survival and prosperity. This interpretation of Göbekli Tepe as a monument to survival and understanding of the cosmos raises yet another intriguing possibility, that the builders of the site were attempting to create a bridge between the human world and the divine, a place where the mysteries of the universe could be understood and revered. The idea of a connection between heaven and earth is found in many ancient cultures, where temples and sacred spaces were designed to align with celestial events and astronomical phenomena. In this sense, Göbekli Tepe may have served as a physical manifestation of the ancient belief that the heavens were not distant and unreachable, but rather intimately connected with the earth and human life. The alignment of the stones with the stars, the carvings that seem to represent cosmic forces, and the site's overall design all suggest that the builders may have been attempting to bridge the gap between the human and the divine, to understand the forces that governed both their world and the cosmos beyond. The question of why Göbekli Tepe was constructed in the first place remains as enigmatic as the people who built it. While the site clearly served a ritualistic and symbolic purpose, its true significance may be far greater than we can currently comprehend. The idea that Göbekli Tepe was a repository of ancient knowledge, possibly passed down from a lost civilization or influenced by external sources, suggests that the builders were not merely creating a religious site, but were preserving and transmitting wisdom that was crucial for humanity's survival and understanding of the universe. Whether this knowledge came from their own civilization, from ancient travelers, or from a cosmic event that reshaped their world, Göbekli Tepe stands as a monument to a long-lost tradition of wisdom, one that may have once been known to all of humanity, but which has since been obscured by time, myth, and history. The ultimate purpose of Göbekli Tepe may never be fully understood, but it is clear that the site holds secrets that continue to captivate the imagination of researchers, archaeologists, and curious minds alike. Whether it was built as a sacred space, a center of knowledge, or a response to cosmic events, Göbekli Tepe stands as a testament to the creativity, ingenuity, and spiritual aspirations of its creators. In a world where much of ancient history has been lost or obscured, the site offers a tantalizing glimpse into a civilization that was, in many ways, far ahead of its time. And as we continue to uncover its mysteries, we are reminded that there is always more to learn about our past, more to discover, more to understand, and more to inspire our future. Göbekli Tepe is not just an archaeological site. It is a window into a world that once was a world that existed long before the rise of civilizations as we know them today. Its purpose, its builders, and its meaning continue to provoke questions that have eluded scholars and archaeologists for decades. One of the most compelling mysteries surrounding Göbekli Tepe is the significance of its location. Situated atop a remote hill in southeastern Turkey, it seems as though this site was deliberately chosen for its isolation. Unlike many other ancient sites, which were built near water sources or in fertile valleys, Göbekli Tepe stands apart from the natural world in a way that suggests it was intended for a purpose that went beyond the immediate needs of survival. The placement of the site seems to indicate that its creators were looking outward, perhaps towards the heavens or towards a greater understanding of the universe. What was it about this particular location that made it so significant, and how did the builders come to choose it? Was the site positioned in this way because of its geographic alignment with celestial bodies, or was it chosen for other, perhaps spiritual or mystical, reasons? The landscape surrounding Göbekli Tepe provides clues that hint at the deeper significance of its location. Despite its remote and seemingly desolate setting, the hill upon which Göbekli Tepe stands offers a panoramic view of the surrounding area. From this vantage point, it's possible to observe the landscape stretching out in all directions, a feature that might have been integral to the site's function. If the site was an astronomical observatory or a place for celestial rituals, the builders would have needed to see as much of the night sky as possible. The clear skies over Göbekli Tepe, combined with its elevation, would have made it an ideal location for observing the stars and other celestial phenomena. Some researchers have suggested that the alignment of the site's pillars with the stars and constellations points to the builders' deep understanding of the heavens. The fact that they chose this particular location, high above the surrounding landscape, may indicate that they believed they were closer to the divine or that they were attempting to establish a direct connection with the cosmos. This connection between the earth and the heavens is a theme that appears repeatedly in ancient cultures across the world. The concept of sacred mountains, or elevated spaces that served as portals to the divine, is common in many ancient traditions. In Egypt, for example, the pyramids were built on the Giza Plateau, where they were aligned with the stars. In the Andes, the Inca constructed their temples on high mountain peaks, believing that these sites were closer to the gods. The choice of an elevated site for Göbekli Tepe, then, could have been a deliberate attempt to build a bridge between the earth and the heavens, creating a sacred space where the human world could connect with the divine. If the builders of Göbekli Tepe were attempting to establish such a connection, it would explain why they went to such extraordinary lengths to create a monument of this scale and complexity. The site's design and construction were not just about creating a physical structure. They were about creating a spiritual portal, one that could connect humanity to the greater forces of the universe. The idea that Göbekli Tepe was designed as a kind of spiritual or cosmic center is further supported by the imagery and symbolism that adorn the pillars. The carvings of animals, particularly the lions, vultures, and snakes, seem to carry a deeper meaning that goes beyond simple depictions of the natural world. In many ancient cultures, animals were not just seen as creatures to be hunted or revered. They were symbols of deeper cosmic forces, representing the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. The lion, for example, is often associated with power, kingship, and the divine. The serpent, meanwhile, is a symbol of transformation, wisdom, and renewal. The vulture, with its connection to death and the afterlife, could be seen as a symbol of the transition between the material and the spiritual worlds. The presence of these animals on the pillars suggests that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were attempting to encode a complex system of cosmic and spiritual knowledge into the very structure of the site. It is as though the carvings are telling a story, not just of the world around them, but the larger, unseen forces that govern life and death, the known and the unknown. The significance of these carvings goes beyond their artistic merit. They are a form of communication, a way for the builders to transmit knowledge, perhaps to future generations, or to those initiated into the mysteries of the site. The fact that these carvings are found on the central pillars, the most prominent and largest stones, suggests that they held particular importance. These pillars, as the central focal points of the site, may have been meant to serve as teaching stones, each one telling a different part of the larger story about the nature of the universe. The symbolism embedded in the carvings could have been used in rituals, ceremonies, or spiritual practices, helping to connect the people who gathered at Göbekli Tepe to the greater cosmic order. Yet, despite the richness of the symbolism, there is still no clear understanding of the exact meaning of the carvings. Some scholars argue that the images may represent a kind of early written language, a symbolic script that encoded the wisdom of the builders in a way that could be understood only by those who were initiated into its mysteries. If this is the case, then the site of Göbekli Tepe becomes even more enigmatic, as it would suggest that the builders possessed a form of written language long before the advent of formal writing systems. This idea challenges conventional notions about the development of writing and suggests that the people who built Göbekli Tepe may have been far more advanced than we previously thought. Another possibility is that the carvings at Göbekli Tepe were meant to convey an understanding of the natural world, a kind of early scientific knowledge. The depiction of various animals could have been a way to teach about the cycles of nature, the changing seasons, and the interconnectedness of life. The builders of Göbekli Tepe might have been attempting to record and preserve their understanding of the natural world, using the carvings to pass on this knowledge to future generations. This would suggest that Göbekli Tepe was not only a place of worship and spiritual significance, but also a center for learning, where knowledge about the earth, the stars, and the forces of nature was studied and passed down. The idea that Göbekli Tepe was a center of knowledge preservation is further supported by the fact that the site was buried, not abandoned. While the reasons for its burial remain unclear, the deliberate covering of the site may have been an act of preservation, ensuring that the knowledge contained within it would not be lost to time. The burial of Göbekli Tepe suggests that the builders understood the importance of their creation and perhaps feared that it would be destroyed or misunderstood by future generations. By hiding it away, they ensured that the knowledge encoded in the site would remain intact, waiting for the right time to be rediscovered. If Göbekli Tepe was a center of knowledge, then the question becomes, who were the people who built it, and why did they choose to bury their creation? Some researchers believe that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were part of a lost civilization, one that possessed advanced knowledge of the natural world and the cosmos. This civilization may have been destroyed by a cataclysmic event, such as a comet impact or a massive earthquake, which could explain why the site was buried and forgotten. Others suggest that the builders were part of a much larger, interconnected world of ancient cultures, one that spanned continents and exchanged knowledge over vast distances. In either case, the builders of Göbekli Tepe were clearly part of a culture that placed great importance on the preservation and transmission of knowledge. Whether they were part of a lost civilization or a global network of ancient cultures, their legacy lives on in the monument they left behind. Göbekli Tepe stands as a testament to the sophistication and depth of ancient human knowledge. The site's design, symbolism, and placement suggest that it was built not just as a religious or ceremonial center, but as a place where profound knowledge about the universe was encoded and preserved. Whether this knowledge was spiritual, astronomical, or scientific in nature, it is clear that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were attempting to create a space that would connect humanity to the larger forces of the cosmos. The mystery of why this knowledge was buried and hidden from view only adds to the intrigue of the site, leaving us to wonder whether the secrets of Göbekli Tepe are meant to be rediscovered at some future time, when humanity is once again ready to understand the profound wisdom that the builders of Göbekli Tepe left behind. The notion that Göbekli Tepe is more than just an archaeological site, that it may hold keys to an ancient understanding of the cosmos and the natural world, raises an intriguing possibility. Could the site have been part of an ancient tradition that spanned across multiple cultures and millennia? The scale of Göbekli Tepe, the complexity of its design, and the richness of its symbolism all point to a deeper purpose than mere religious observance or social gathering. There is a theory that suggests the builders of Göbekli Tepe were part of an ancient network of knowledge keepers, a group of people who passed down esoteric knowledge across generations, maintaining sacred sites like Göbekli Tepe as repositories for their teachings. This idea opens up the possibility that Göbekli Tepe was not just a standalone site, but part of a much larger system of spiritual and intellectual monuments, each one connected by a shared understanding of the world and the forces that shape it. These monuments may have been created to preserve and pass on sacred knowledge that was considered too valuable or too dangerous for the masses. This network or tradition might have spanned across time and space, extending far beyond the boundaries of Göbekli Tepe. We know that ancient civilizations, including the Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and even the Minoans, had an understanding of astronomy and sacred geometry that far surpassed what would be expected from their time periods. The question then becomes, how far back does this tradition of esoteric knowledge go? Could it be that Göbekli Tepe was a central node in a much older network of knowledge that stretched across the ancient world? And if so, what was the nature of this knowledge, and why was it considered so sacred and so secret? One of the most compelling aspects of this theory is the idea that Göbekli Tepe was built as a kind of cosmic map. The site's layout, with its concentric circles and precise alignments, suggests a deep understanding of astronomical cycles and celestial events. Some researchers have pointed out that the positioning of certain pillars at Göbekli Tepe seems to correspond with the movement of stars, planets, and constellations. If the site was indeed built as a cosmic map, then it might have been used by ancient astronomers or priests to track the movements of the heavens and interpret their significance. This would suggest that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were not just engaged in a purely religious or ceremonial practice, but in a sophisticated system of cosmic observation and understanding. The knowledge encoded in the site could have been used to predict celestial events such as eclipses, solstices, and equinoxes, which were seen as powerful omens or signs from the gods. The idea of Göbekli Tepe as a cosmic map raises further questions about the nature of the knowledge that was preserved at the site. If the builders were indeed tracking the stars and using the site for astronomical purposes, then they must have had an advanced understanding of the natural world and its cycles. In many ancient cultures, such knowledge was considered to be sacred, reserved for a select few who were initiated into its mysteries. This knowledge was often passed down in a guarded, secretive manner, hidden from the public to protect it from misuse. Could Göbekli Tepe have been part of this ancient tradition, a place where cosmic knowledge was passed down through generations, hidden from the wider world? If so, the burial of the site may have been an intentional act of preservation, ensuring that this sacred knowledge would be hidden until a time when humanity was ready to rediscover it. What is particularly intriguing about Göbekli Tepe is the way it fits into a larger historical pattern of sacred sites that encode hidden knowledge. Throughout history, there are numerous examples of monuments, temples, and buildings that were constructed with hidden or esoteric meanings. In ancient Egypt, for example, the pyramids were believed to encode sacred knowledge related to the afterlife, astronomy, and the divine order. The Great Pyramid of Giza, in particular, is aligned with the stars in a way that suggests a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. Similarly, in ancient Greece, temples were often constructed in alignment with the stars and planets, and many of these temples were dedicated to gods and goddesses associated with the heavens. It is possible that Göbekli Tepe, with its precise alignments and symbolic carvings, was part of this same tradition, a site built to encode sacred knowledge about the universe and the forces that govern it. The idea of hidden or esoteric knowledge being encoded in monuments is further supported by the fact that many ancient civilizations believed that the gods communicated with humanity through celestial events. Eclipses, comets, and planetary alignments were often seen as messages from the divine, and people would gather at sacred sites to interpret these omens. Göbekli Tepe, with its astronomical alignments and its central position in the landscape, could have served as a place where these celestial messages were decoded and interpreted by a select group of priests or astronomers. These individuals, who possessed the knowledge to understand the movements of the heavens, would have been seen as intermediaries between the divine and the human world. They may have used the site to make predictions about the future, to perform rituals, or to offer guidance to the community based on the cosmic patterns they observed. There is also the possibility that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were attempting to encode a more universal understanding of the cosmos, a knowledge that transcended the immediate concerns of the people who built it. The carvings of animals on the pillars, for example, may represent more than just local wildlife. They could symbolize larger cosmic forces. In many ancient cultures, animals were seen as representations of divine qualities or cosmic principles. The serpent, for example, was often associated with the concept of transformation, representing the cyclical nature of life and death. The lion, with its connection to power and kingship, could symbolize the force of creation or the divine authority that governed the universe. The vulture, often associated with death and rebirth, could represent the continuous cycle of life, the inevitable return to the earth, and the renewal of life. These symbols could be part of a larger system of cosmic understanding, one that sought to explain the forces that shape the universe and the nature of existence itself. The symbolism of Göbekli Tepe is not limited to the carvings of animals. However, the very design of the site, the concentric circles, the central pillars, the arrangement of the stones, suggests a deeper cosmic significance. In many ancient cultures, the circle was seen as a symbol of unity, wholeness, and the eternal cycle of life. The fact that Göbekli Tepe is arranged in a series of concentric circles may reflect a belief in the cyclical nature of existence, in which everything is interconnected and in constant motion. The central pillars, which stand as the focal points of the site, could represent the axis of the cosmos, the point of connection between heaven and earth, the divine and the human. This idea is reinforced by the fact that the largest pillars are placed at the center of the circles, suggesting that they held particular significance, perhaps serving as a link between the material world and the spiritual realm. The precise alignment of Göbekli Tepe with the stars further suggests that the site was designed with cosmic knowledge in mind. The alignment of the pillars with specific constellations or celestial events may indicate that the site was used for astronomical observation, allowing the builders to track the movements of the stars and planets. This would not have been a simple task, as it requires a deep understanding of celestial mechanics and an advanced level of observation. The fact that Göbekli Tepe was constructed with such precision at a time when humanity was still in the early stages of development suggests that its builders possessed knowledge that was far ahead of their time. Could they have inherited this knowledge from a lost civilization? Or was this knowledge passed down through an ancient tradition that spanned across time and space? The answer to this question remains elusive, but the possibility that Göbekli Tepe was part of a larger network of sacred sites dedicated to preserving and transmitting cosmic knowledge is a compelling one. Göbekli Tepe's burial only adds to the mystery. The deliberate act of covering up the site, hiding it from view for thousands of years, suggests that the knowledge contained within it was considered too important, too sacred, or perhaps too dangerous to be accessed by just anyone. It is possible that the builders of Göbekli Tepe, or those who followed them, feared that the knowledge encoded in the site could be misused or misunderstood, and so they chose to bury it as a form of protection. This would explain why the site remained hidden for so long, waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered. If Göbekli Tepe was part of an ancient network of knowledge keepers, then its burial may have been an attempt to preserve the sacred teachings of the past, waiting for a time when humanity was ready to understand them once again. As we continue to explore Göbekli Tepe, it becomes increasingly clear that this site is not just an isolated anomaly. It is part of a much larger, more complex tradition of ancient knowledge. Whether it was built by a lost civilization, by a network of knowledge keepers, or by a group of people seeking to encode their understanding of the cosmos, Göbekli Tepe represents a profound mystery, one that challenges our conventional understanding of human history and our place in the universe. The symbolism, the design, and the celestial alignments all point to a deeper meaning, one that is yet to be fully understood. Perhaps, like the buried site itself, the true significance of Göbekli Tepe will remain hidden until the time is right for humanity to rediscover it. The more we explore Göbekli Tepe, the more it seems to defy our conventional understanding of ancient history. One of the most striking aspects of the site is not just its complexity or the mystery of its purpose, but the question of why it was buried in the first place. The deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe is one of the most compelling and enigmatic aspects of its history. At some point, the site was intentionally covered up, its significance hidden from view for thousands of years. This raises a number of questions. Who buried it and why? The idea that Göbekli Tepe was hidden away, buried beneath layers of earth, suggests that its creators may have believed the knowledge encoded in the site was too important, too dangerous, or too sacred to be left exposed to the world. But what exactly did they fear? And who were the people responsible for this act of preservation? The act of burying Göbekli Tepe may not have been an act of abandonment, but an act of safeguarding. The builders of the site, or perhaps their successors, may have feared that the knowledge contained within the stones could be misused or corrupted. In ancient times, it was not uncommon for knowledge to be passed down through secretive or elite circles, often with the belief that only certain individuals were worthy of understanding its deeper meaning. Could it be that Göbekli Tepe, with its intricate carvings and astronomical alignments, was seen as a sacred repository of knowledge that was too valuable or too dangerous to be exposed to the general public? The deliberate covering of the site may have been an attempt to protect this sacred knowledge, to ensure that it would not fall into the wrong hands or be misinterpreted by those who were not prepared to understand it. One theory that could explain the burial of Göbekli Tepe is that it was buried to protect it from the ravages of time and from the inevitable decline of the civilization that built it. If the builders of Göbekli Tepe were part of a highly advanced culture, one that possessed profound knowledge of astronomy, spirituality, and the natural world, then they may have understood that their civilization was in danger of collapse. The end of an era, a shifting of the ages, or a great cataclysm could have led them to take measures to preserve their sacred knowledge. By burying Göbekli Tepe, they could have been ensuring that their knowledge would survive long enough to be rediscovered in a future era when the world was ready to understand it again. The burial of the site, then, would not have been an act of abandonment, but one of preservation, a deliberate attempt to protect something invaluable from being lost forever. The idea that Göbekli Tepe was buried as a form of protection also raises the question of who was responsible for its burial. Could it have been the same people who built it, or was it a later group who sought to hide the site for other reasons? Some researchers speculate that the burial of Göbekli Tepe may have been an act of suppression, carried out by later generations who viewed the site and its knowledge as a threat to their own worldview. As we know, throughout history, there have been instances where knowledge was suppressed by those in power. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria, the burning of ancient texts, and the suppression of esoteric teachings all serve as reminders of how certain knowledge has been deliberately hidden away to maintain control over society. In the case of Göbekli Tepe, it is possible that later societies, perhaps those that emerged after the site was abandoned, saw the teachings and knowledge of Göbekli Tepe as a challenge to their own authority. The burial of the site, then, could have been a way to erase the past and suppress any knowledge that could undermine their control. Another possibility is that the burial of Göbekli Tepe was tied to a shift in religious or cultural beliefs. Over time, as societies evolve, their religious and spiritual practices often change. The The rise of new gods, new rituals, or new philosophies can lead to the abandonment or suppression of older traditions. It's possible that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were adherents of a spiritual system that became out of favor, either due to internal changes within the society or external pressures from neighboring cultures. As new belief systems took hold, the older knowledge encoded in Göbekli Tepe may have been seen as obsolete or even dangerous. In this context, burying the site could have been a way to bury the past, to ensure that the old ways were not remembered or revived. The burial of Göbekli Tepe also raises the intriguing question of whether the site was intentionally hidden from future generations. If the builders of the site were part of an advanced civilization with a profound understanding of the cosmos and the mysteries of the universe, they may have believed that their knowledge needed to be passed down at a specific time in the future. This notion of knowledge being preserved for future generations is a recurring theme in many ancient cultures. The ancient Egyptians, for example, believed that their sacred knowledge would be passed down through the ages, waiting for a time when humanity would be ready to understand it again. Could the builders of Göbekli Tepe have shared this same belief, that their knowledge was meant to be rediscovered at a later date, when humanity was once again capable of comprehending its deeper meaning? If this was the case, then the burial of Göbekli Tepe may have been a deliberate act of preservation, designed to ensure that the site would be hidden away until the right time. This could explain why the site remained buried for so long, its secrets hidden beneath layers of earth, waiting to be rediscovered by modern archaeologists. The fact that Göbekli Tepe was eventually uncovered in the 1990s, after millennia of being buried, lends weight to the idea that the site was intended to be revealed at a specific moment in history, when humanity was ready to receive the knowledge it contained. The timing of the site's rediscovery, in the context of our modern era, could be seen as part of a larger cosmic plan, one in which the wisdom of the ancients would be reintroduced to the world at a time when it could have the greatest impact. Another interesting aspect of the burial of Göbekli Tepe is the role that geology may have played in preserving the site. The fact that the site was buried beneath layers of earth for thousands of years may have inadvertently protected it from the ravages of time. If the site had been left exposed, it may have been subject to the elements, erosion, and looting. But by being buried, Göbekli Tepe was preserved in a state of near-perfect condition, waiting to be uncovered by future generations. The act of burying the site could have been both a physical and symbolic act of preservation, ensuring that the knowledge contained within it would survive, even as civilizations rose and fell around it. As we examine the burial of Göbekli Tepe, it becomes increasingly clear that this act was not random or accidental. It was a deliberate and purposeful act that speaks to the sacred and highly valued nature of the knowledge the site contained. Whether the burial was carried out by the original builders, by later generations, or by unknown hands, it reflects a profound understanding of the power of knowledge and a need to protect it from the forces of time, corruption, and misuse. The question, then, is not just who buried Göbekli Tepe, but why they did so. Was it to protect sacred knowledge, to suppress it, or to preserve it for future generations? Whatever the reason, the burial of Göbekli Tepe is a key to understanding the true purpose of the site, and its discovery in modern times may be a clue to a much larger story, a story of knowledge, wisdom, and secrets that have been hidden from view for millennia, waiting for humanity to unlock them once again. This mystery is compounded by the fact that many of the ancient cultures that followed Göbekli Tepe, cultures that were known for their monumental architecture and advanced knowledge, such as the Egyptians and the Sumerians, may have had access to the same kind of knowledge encoded in Göbekli Tepe. Could it be that the knowledge of the stars, of the natural world, and of cosmic cycles was passed down from one civilization to the next, from Göbekli Tepe to the ancient Egyptians and beyond? If so, it would suggest that the builders of Göbekli Tepe were part of a much larger and far-reaching tradition, one that transcended time and geography. The idea that Göbekli Tepe was part of a long-running tradition of knowledge transmission raises the possibility that the burial of the site was not just a local act, but part of a much larger effort to preserve sacred knowledge across generations and civilizations. Ultimately, The burial of Göbekli Tepe is a mystery that invites us to think on a deeper level about the nature of knowledge itself. Why would the builders of such an advanced and sophisticated site choose to bury it? And what does this act say about their understanding of the value of knowledge? The burial of Göbekli Tepe, like the site itself, remains shrouded in mystery. But it is this very mystery that continues to captivate our imagination and inspire us to seek the answers that lie hidden beneath the earth. As we continue to explore and study Göbekli Tepe, we may find that the site holds not just the answers to the mysteries of the past, but also keys to understanding the mysteries of our own time. As we continue to peel back the layers of history surrounding Göbekli Tepe, the questions keep multiplying. What was the true purpose of this site? Why were such extraordinary efforts made to construct such an enigmatic monument? And why, after construction, did it seem to fall into relative obscurity? These questions lead us toward an even deeper mystery surrounding the site. Could have been part of a larger, global network of sacred sites, each designed to transmit ancient knowledge or connect humanity with celestial forces. The idea that Göbekli Tepe was part of an interconnected web of spiritual, astronomical, and cultural centers opens up the possibility that the site's purpose was not isolated to a single civilization or culture, but that it was the product of a global tradition. This theory suggests that, far from being an anomaly, Göbekli Tepe may have been one part of a vast, ancient network of knowledge and ritual centers spread across different regions, each contributing to the transmission of sacred wisdom through the ages. Looking back at the ancient world, we can see that many cultures shared similar architectural motifs and religious practices, particularly those that involve the observation of celestial bodies and the connection between the heavens and the earth. From the great pyramids of Egypt to the ancient observatories of Mesopotamia, the construction of monumental structures often served as an expression of humanity's desire to connect with the divine and to understand the cycles of nature. Could it be that Göbekli Tepe was part of this larger tradition, one that spanned the globe and linked various ancient cultures through a shared cosmology? If this is the case, then Göbekli Tepe was not just an isolated site, but a focal point in a larger, interconnected network of sacred places, each serving as a repository of knowledge and a center for spiritual and astronomical observation. The possibility of such a global network is not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, there are numerous examples of ancient civilizations that share remarkable similarities in their astronomical practices and architectural styles. For instance, the ancient cultures of Mesoamerica, such as the Maya and the Olmec, built pyramids and other monumental structures aligned with celestial events like solstices and equinoxes. Similarly, ancient cultures in India, such as the Harappan civilization, also built complex cities with careful attention to astronomical alignment. These examples suggest that the idea of constructing monumental structures to track and understand the movements of celestial bodies was not confined to a single region, but was part of a broader global tradition. Could Göbekli Tepe, with its intricate carvings and precise astronomical alignments, have been another link in this chain, a site that was part of a much larger tradition of ancient knowledge? To explore this possibility further, we must look at the significance of the specific features found at Göbekli Tepe. The site's concentric circles, the arrangement of its pillars, and the carvings that adorn the stones all seem to point to a deep understanding of the cosmos. The positioning of the pillars, for instance, appears to correspond to the movements of the stars and planets, particularly the constellations. The central pillars, with their carvings of animals and other symbols, seem to encode a message about the relationship between the earth and the heavens. These features suggest that Göbekli Tepe was not just a religious center, but an astronomical observatory, a place where ancient astronomers or priests could track the movements of the stars and use this information to predict celestial events. But why would the builders of Göbekli Tepe have gone to such great lengths to encode this knowledge in stone? The idea that the site was part of a global network of sacred sites suggests that the knowledge contained within the site was not meant to be understood by just anyone. Instead, it may have been intended for a select group of individuals, priests, astronomers, or knowledge keepers, who were entrusted with the sacred task of interpreting the movements of the heavens and understanding the deeper forces of nature. These individuals, who had access to the ancient wisdom encoded in the monuments, would have been seen as intermediaries between the divine and the human world. In this sense, Göbekli Tepe may have served as a focal point for the transmission of esoteric knowledge, a place where the secrets of the cosmos were preserved and passed down through generations. It's also possible that Göbekli Tepe was part of a larger system of spiritual and astronomical centers that were connected not just through knowledge, but also through ritual. The ancient world was full of sites that were built not only as places of worship, but also as ceremonial centers, where rituals were performed to honor the gods, mark the changing of the seasons, or bring the community into alignment with the rhythms of nature. Göbekli Tepe, with its towering pillars and ritualistic carvings, may have been a site where such ceremonies were held, drawing people from surrounding regions to participate in rituals that celebrated the cyclical nature of the cosmos. The idea that Göbekli Tepe was a hub and a network of such ritual centers suggests that the ancient world was far more interconnected than we often assume. Rather than being isolated, ancient cultures may have shared a common spiritual and astronomical framework, with each site playing a role in the transmission of knowledge and the performance of sacred rites. Another intriguing aspect of Göbekli Tepe's potential connection to a global network is its relationship to other ancient sites that are similarly aligned with celestial events. For instance, the temples of the ancient Egyptians, including the Great Pyramid of Giza, were built with careful attention to the stars, and they were aligned with the solstices and equinoxes. Similarly, the ancient megalithic sites of Europe, such as Stonehenge, were constructed to mark important celestial events. These sites share a common purpose: to connect the earth with the heavens, to track the movements of celestial bodies, and to align human activity with the natural cycles of the universe. Could it be that Göbekli Tepe was part of this larger pattern? If so, the builders of Göbekli Tepe may have been part of a much larger intercontinental network of ancient civilizations, each contributing to the global understanding of astronomy, spirituality, and the forces that shape the world. In considering this possibility, we must also take into account the role of trade and cultural exchange in the ancient world. Long before the rise of empires and nation-states, ancient civilizations were interconnected through trade routes that spanned vast distances. These trade routes facilitated not only the exchange of goods, but also the exchange of ideas, technologies, and spiritual practices. It is entirely plausible that the knowledge encoded in sites like Göbekli Tepe was passed along these trade routes, spreading from one culture to another and contributing to the development of a shared cosmic worldview. The idea of Göbekli Tepe being part of a global network of sacred sites is further supported by evidence of long-distance trade and cultural exchange between ancient cultures. Whether through the Silk Road, maritime routes, or other trade networks, the ancient world was far more interconnected than we often give it credit for. However, the idea that Göbekli Tepe was part of a global network of sacred sites also raises another question. If these sites were indeed part of shared tradition, why did they disappear? What caused the breakdown of this network, and why did the knowledge contained within these sites fall into obscurity? Some researchers have suggested that the decline of these ancient civilizations, possibly due to environmental changes, natural disasters, or warfare, led to the abandonment or suppression of these sacred sites. The collapse of the global network of knowledge could have been a result of cataclysmic events, such as climate change, famines, or even a global upheaval caused by the rise of new powers. As these ancient civilizations declined, the knowledge they had preserved might have been lost, suppressed, or hidden away, possibly in an attempt to protect it from falling into the wrong hands. The burial of Göbekli Tepe itself may be a reflection of this decline, a deliberate attempt to preserve the knowledge of the past until humanity was ready to rediscover it. The fact that Göbekli Tepe was hidden for millennia before its rediscovery in the 1990s lends weight to the idea that it was meant to be uncovered at a specific moment in history, when humanity would be ready to receive the knowledge contained within it. This timing, along with the global network theory, suggests that the site's purpose was not just local, but universal, meant to be part of a much larger spiritual and intellectual tradition that transcended the boundaries of individual cultures and time periods. In the end, Göbekli Tepe may hold more than just the secrets of a single lost civilization. It may be a symbol of an ancient tradition of knowledge that spanned the globe, connecting humanity to the cosmos in ways we are only beginning to understand. Whether it was part of a global network of sacred sites, a focal point for ancient wisdom, or a place where celestial events were interpreted, Göbekli Tepe stands as a testament to the depth and complexity of ancient human knowledge. The mystery of its true purpose continues to captivate researchers, historians, and curious minds alike as we strive to uncover the secrets that lie hidden within its stones. As the mystery of Göbekli Tepe unravels, we find ourselves confronted with more than just an archaeological wonder. The more we learn about this ancient site, the more we begin to question the very nature of human civilization and its origins. If Göbekli Tepe was not a product of the societies we typically associate with monumental construction, such as the Sumerians or Egyptians, then who were the people who built it? The skill, knowledge, and effort required to construct such a site seem to suggest a level of sophistication far beyond what we traditionally associate with hunter-gatherer cultures, the conventional theory being that this site was built around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. How could such a seemingly primitive society have created something so intricate, so precise, and so far ahead of its time?